Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week of marine biology. This week, we're going to be learning about ecology, which is one of my absolute favorite topics. I love talking about ecology, all the different ways species interact with each other and their environment, and how that influences things like population growth and decline and evolution and all different kinds of stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, marine ecology, what is it? It is the study of how organisms interact with each other and their environment. It also involves the enumeration and description of habitats, which is what we call the natural environment where an organism lives. There are a lot of different questions that we can ask about an ecosystem. Things about both the living and non-living components of an ecosystem. For example, what is the chemistry of the water, right? We talked about that a lot last week. Things like dissolved gases, nutrients, pollutants, turbidity. All of that will influence what kind of environment it is and what kind of organisms will be located there. Who's eating who, how much, who are the important primary producers? We'll talk about what those are in a moment. What's providing habitat structure? That is, what is providing the three-dimensional organization of the habitat, whether that's rocks or kelp or seagrass or coral. Also, are populations increasing, decreasing, or staying the same? We'll talk about population growth and declines. What's the climate like? What's the temperature? What is the weather like? What is the seasonality like? Are the seasons pretty stable, or is it really cold in the winter and really warm in the summer? And of course, how are the organisms influencing each other? These are the different levels at which we tend to talk about things in ecology, although it's missing one that I'll talk about in a moment. So if we start at the lowest level, the lowest kind of, in some ways, more simple level, we have the individuals. This is just one member of a particular species, like one clownfish. Then we have populations. These are groups of the same species living in the same area at the same time. So maybe like a group of clownfish living on a reef together. Then we have a community. These are all the different living species together in the same area. So that'd be like the clownfish, their competitor fish species like Moorish idols, the coral, the sponges, the shrimp, the all the little plankton in the water, all the living stuff in the area. And then lastly, we have the ecosystem. That's kind of the biggest level, other than the one I'm about to talk about. This is all the living stuff, so all the community, as well as all the non-living stuff. So we'll kind of start at the top and work our way down as we go through today's lecture. So first, I want to talk about there is kind of technically one level above ecosystem that is a biome. A biome, as I said here, is a biogeographical unit consisting of biological community that is formed in response to the physical environment and regional climate. So the distinction between ecosystem and biome is a little like kind of a gray area because basically a biome is like a type of ecosystem. So it's not just the ecosystem in a particular place, it's the type of ecosystem. So something like coral reefs in general is like a biome. And that map right there, you can see where all the coral reefs of the world are kind of marked out. Excuse me. So all the coral reefs of the world are in red in this map. If we were talking about a particular ecosystem, we might say something like the Florida Keys, like the Florida reefs, or like the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, because there are big differences between those reefs, even though they're both a type of the same type of biome, they are a coral reef. So that's kind of the next level up beyond ecosystem. But let's go ahead and talk about ecosystems. Again, it's a biological community of interacting organisms and their physical environment. So again, living and non-living stuff. The example I have here is kind of a forest, which of course we don't deal much with in this class, but it would include the producers, things like plants. It would include consumers, rabbits and foxes. It would include decomposers like bacteria and fungi, and as well as the inorganic stuff like solar energy or nutrients. When we are talking about an ecosystem, we can talk about the biotic factors, which are the living things in the ecosystem. So again, bacteria, plants, animals, fungi. In the ocean, it's a lot of algae and protists as well. And then there's the abiotic factors. These are non-living components of the ecosystem. So air, salinity, all that water chemistry stuff. The sediments, we talked all about geology a couple weeks back. So the sediments, the rocks, plate tectonics, the shape and steepness of a beach, the light, the physics of the water. So how big the waves are, what is the tidal range like, the pH, again, the weather and climate. So all of that is abiotic factors. And importantly, biotic factors are impacted by abiotic. That makes sense, right? So for example, the turbidity of the water is going to affect how far light can penetrate, and that'll influence how deep algae can grow, because algae needs light for photosynthesis. But biotic factors can also affect the abiotic factors. For example, how much phytoplankton growth you get will determine if you have like more lithogenic or biogenic sediments, right? Because if you have more phytoplankton growth and all those little shells are raining down to the bottom, you're going to have more biogenous sediment. So it can influence in both directions. First question for today's lecture. Let's imagine we're studying a population of clownfish on a reef. So it's a coral reef ecosystem. You got clownfish living there. What is one biotic factor they would interact with? And what is one abiotic factor they would interact with? So go ahead and answer that now.